We're recording. And of course, first of all, we both have our red hats, Steve. Uh, I followed your lead and put my red hat on.
You must be you're very good at improv. You follow the lead. You just went right with it. Perfect for improv. And this whole thing might be an improv interview.
There will be an element of that, I'm sure.
I think so.
Anyway, I'm delighted that we're having this conversation. And delighted to finally, after all these years, that we're finally sort of face to face, so to speak, even if it's all through Zoom. Because I've known of you sort of for ages, because I knew you were a pioneer in the field of laughter and humor. I didn't realize that your pioneering had started back in 1984, which is fantastic. And you are the initiator and creator of the World Laughter Tour, and you are a joyologist.
That's correct.
So, see, this is all sort of fantastic. Who better, you see, to have a conversation about joy with than someone who is a joyologist?
Sure.
So thank you very much for sort of for giving me your time. And as you know, question number one is, what is joy to you? What does joy mean to you, Steve?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for asking me and inviting me to have this discussion. It's important, and I'm so happy to meet you in person.
Yeah.
You are so loved in our big family of laughter lovers and humor lovers.
Whoa.
You have a very good reputation, and I'm about to find out whether you deserve it.
Thank you, Steve.
I already think you do. There are several things about joy. One little aspect of it, or not so little, is that my wife and I, her name is Pam, and she and I run the World Laughter Tour together. Pam's official title in the organization is Empress of Everything. So that tells you something about how we operate. When we met, and we had both had previous marriages and had children coming along, but when we met, one of the things, and we were a blind date set up by friends, but we discovered that we both come from a background that believes that whatever happens in life, even if it's unpleasant, even if it's tragic, even if it's disappointing, there's a lesson that will be of great value to us if we can figure it out. So we discovered that we believed that together. We also had in common, and it's not very different from a lot of people, sudden loss of people we loved. And that often sets people into the mode of questioning why, what happened, how could that have happened? My mother died when I was 20 years old. She died of ovarian cancer. And from her diagnosis to the time she died was just a few weeks. And she was a going, lively person. She was 52 years old. Pam's first husband died suddenly. So we had this in common, and we don't feel that we're very different from other people. But one of the things that we realized, that we were both on a kind of a quest to figure out what the heck could be the lesson that would be good for us in such a terrible situation.
Yes.
And we were in a toy store in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The toy store was called The Last Wound Up. because it was wind-up toys that they featured. And as we were checking out, we bought a few toys. And at the cash register, at the counter, they were selling bumper stickers. And the bumper sticker said, "Don't postpone joy."
Oh, very nice. Very
And,
nice.
and we both looked at that and said, that is one of the lessons we've been looking for. What is the lesson in this tragedy of sudden loss of people that we love? Well, there's all sides to every situation. So one side is don't postpone joy. Mark Twain said, life is uncertain. Eat your dessert first.
Yes.
The ancient philosopher said, carpe diem.
Yes.
I
Yes.
say, carpe the heck out of this diem.
Yes.
The poet says, gather ye rosebuds while you may.
Yes.
And all of that's about don't postpone joy.
Very nice.
And that became our philosophy. That's how I became a joyologist. I started teaching this idea to people, and somebody said, "You're not a psychologist, you're a joyologist." And I said, well, good, because I like that, because the world doesn't need any more psychologists, but a joyologist could be not a bad thing for the world. So I accepted that. I took that on. And that became the underpinning of our philosophy of life. So today, as we record this, Joe, is a special day. It's our anniversary. And,
wonderful.
and so Pam and I have been married 13,583 days today.
13,583.
And we interpreted don't postpone joy as life is uncertain and make the most of it every day that you can. So we realized getting in that we were going to get married, and we decided you can't count on how many years you're going to be married. You don't know if you're going to have 1 or 20 or 50, but what we can count on is today. We have today. So we decided we would count the days instead of the years. And it would be a good reminder that if you count the days, remember, make every day count.
Very nice.
What are you going to do today? So joy came into our relationship as an answer to one of the lessons that we can learn even from very unpleasant circumstances. Now, I think I think that joy doesn't happen as except on a spectrum. I think everything in life happens on a spectrum. That's another conversation. So joy has a continuum from very little to a great deal. It's not joy as one thing. It's not joy only happens one way. So we might want to think about it as there are little joys and there are big joys. There are light, superficial joys and there are deep joys. So sometimes you might think of, sometimes joy in your life is spelled with a lowercase j, and sometimes it's spelled with a capital J, an uppercase J, and sometimes the whole word is capitalized. So it occurs to us, we can experience this it's a kind of a happiness. It's a kind of a pleasure. But it doesn't only happen one way. If I want an ice cream cone, and I would love to have an ice cream cone, if I can get that right now or pretty quickly, I might say that's joy. There's some joy in an ice cream cone.
Yeah.
But it's for me, it's the lowercase joy.
Yeah.
Now I have some Christian friends who say that joy stands for Jesus, others, and you.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
But I have a philosopher mentor who said joy stands for just one you.
Yeah.
Joy is about you.
Yeah.
It's about your remarkably unique. And I remember, I was first of all, you're looking at what's become of a hippie, uh, a literal hippie. I grew up, what I remember of the 60s.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so this is joy. What it can come in all kinds of shapes and forms, but it's about happiness.
Yeah.
And it can be very deep and can be very profound and long lasting, and it provide a great balance to the unpleasant things in life.
Yeah.
I decided a long time ago when I was a psychologist in practice, I found it very helpful to stop thinking about feelings and emotions as positive and negative. I thought I came to conclude that was not the best way to think about feelings. Feelings are all positive in the sense that every emotion that you're capable of thinking and feeling has value if you know what it is, if you know what it tells you, if you know the message and you know how to express it and you know how to manage it, then all emotions are positive.
Yeah.
Some are pleasant, some are unpleasant. And that's, to me, a much better way of thinking about feelings. So joy is about the pleasant, somewhere in the pleasant side of the spectrum, the continuum. And I think joy has something to do with expectations. What do you expect? There's a formula, kind of an algebra formula, that joy, we could call it joy equals realization divided by expectation. Now, that's a formula. The greater what happens is, compared to what you expected, the more joy you're going to experience.
Yes.
So the way to experience more joy, one tip, one way is stop expecting so much.
Yes. Very nice.
Keep your expectations low, and then what happens will probably be something greater than that.
Yes.
And if it comes it could be a pleasant surprise as an aspect of joy. And I just want to put in here, one of my great friends and supporters and colleagues in this work is Lee Berk. Lee is the man who is sometimes called the father of psychoneuroimmunology, the mind-body connection. A great scientist. His work is wonderful and very reliable, what he studies. And he has begun to do a couple of studies on what he calls the biology of hope.
Nice.
The biology of emotions. And Norman Cousins, in his last book was called Head First, The Biology of Hope. So all of these things have been an influence. I don't feel like I'm a pioneer, by the way. I feel like I am standing on the shoulders of pioneers. I had the good fortune to meet Bill Fry and become friends with Bill and Patty Wooten and some people who are, gone now, C.W. Metcalf, and so many of the people that I think really made early contributions, and Lee Berk and Bill Fry were hired by Norman Cousins to do the first research. Cousins said, something's going on here about, laughing and humor, and my disease went into remission. I want to know the science of this. And he raised money and he hired Lee Berk and Bill Fry, who became my friends later on. But I felt like they made such great contributions. If I could advance their work, that's fine. I don't have to invent anything new. I don't have to discover anything new. It's there. It's been there. So really smart, wonderful people have started to show it to us. I want to help to put the spotlight on that. Put Joe in the spotlight. Put so many people, And we know that the organization AATH, the Association for Applied and Therapeutic Humor, was started by nurses.
Yeah.
The original name was NFL, Nurses for Laughter. So the medical profession, was sort of, there were people who saw this. Now, we didn't have a lot of science. What we had was a kind of a faith. We had a kind of an intuition about it. Now, in the last 30 years or so, now the evidence is coming in. In 1964, Dr. Fry was invited and given a grant by our American United States National Institute of Health to study two questions. One was, is laughter worth studying for understanding human health and well-being? And do you think computers might be handy in that study? 1964. And he sent me his original report that he made back to the Institute. And he said, absolutely, laughter would be wonderful to study. He planted the flag. And he coined the term gelotology. He said it should be called gelotology. He told me many times, said, Steve, tell people it's called gelotology, not gelotology. It's the science of laughter, not the science of dessert.
Yes.
And I was so fortunate, Joe, to be able to know these people, and we became friends and mutual support and mutual ideals and goals. So I feel like I'm not a pioneer. I'm an advancer of the pioneers.
Well, it's fantastic, Steve, because because of your background and your experience, right, and in a nice way, your longevity, right.
Can I say a word about longevity, please?
Yes.
Because I have a joke for it.
Yes, go for it, Steve.
Joe, I'm 80, but that's only 26.6 Celsius.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you for letting me get that in.
Yeah, it's there've been endless sort of pearls in this conversation. Just sort of listening to your insights, and don't postpone joy. If that it will be such a core message for people to take away from this conversation.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
And really, and that really answers both questions in a way, because it shows just how important it is, and how important it has been, and how important it is in your life, not just your working life, but your life.
Yes, Joe. So for those who need the more scientific aspect of it, we now know. Well, when I first got involved with the Humor Project and Joel Goodman and those people, we didn't. We suspected that when you laugh, your brain produced endorphins, a hormone, a chemical called endorphin. We didn't have the real evidence, but there were enough people who suspected that was going on that we claimed it. And we knew that sooner or later it would either be proved true or not. But we said in the early days, when you laugh, your brain produces endorphins. It must be. Now we know. I'm going to tell you about. We need to tell people that we can just start with 3 chemicals, 3 things that happen when you're in joy, when you're in laughter, when you're in humor. Your brain produces these hormones. Your body, now the evidence is here. If your body can self-produce endorphins, that's a very pleasant, wonderful feeling that comes with that. and maybe even some pain reduction. Your brain also starts to push into your bloodstream something called oxytocin. That's a hormone that's called the love hormone. When people are producing oxytocin, and they do when they laugh and feel joy and elation, they connect. We connect to each other.
Yeah.
And let's see, oxytocin, endorphins, and cortisol is another chemical that reduces. Lee Berk did some studies on this very early on. Cortisol is a stress hormone. When you have cortisol in your bloodstream, you feel tense, you feel angry, you feel sad, you feel depressed. If we can get that chemical to go down and reduce, then we're going to be much happier. When we laugh in good humor, true mirthful laughter is what it's called. And the joy is part of that. So there's something about, it's incredible. As human beings, first of all, life is incredible. I mean, just to me, I'm blown away by every living thing. It's remarkable. And human beings have the ability to produce inside themselves and to share with other people the chemistry of well-being. So we can start by helping people know that.
Fantastic. Again, your comment about sort of true mirthful laughter and how joy can help access this true mirthful laughter that then has that helps produce the endorphins and oxytocin and reduce cortisol. It's fantastic. It's all, Steve, it's been fantastic. A really, really fantastic. I have enjoyed every minute, Steve.
Me too. Me too. Joe, we're connected. We're connected now.
I know.
This is wonderful.
Yes. Steve, thank you very, very much. Maybe with a fair wind, if we're lucky, we might actually at some point, have a chance to meet not through a screen, and that will be a very fine thing.
I would love it. Looking forward to that day.
Lovely. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.